You're tuned into the It's Real podcast with your hosts, Kayla Callender and Andrew Yagi. Each week, we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes working full-time in real estate and share with you real-life stories, our successes and failures as we work to help consumers and industry professionals reach their real estate and real-life goals. Here we go. It's episode 36 of the It's Real podcast. I'm Andrew Yagi, and I'm a real estate agent.
I'm Kayla Callender, and I'm a mortgage lender.
Kayla, happy Giving Hearts Day. How are you doing today?
Very Giving Hearts Day focused, Andrew.
I can see you're all decked out, no doubt, in support of an animal shelter or something dog related.
Of course, Homeward Animal Shelter. If anyone is listening to this, we would absolutely love any donations and contributions to help all of the animals of the FM community. So that's my little plug. So if you're not donating on Giving Hearts Day, you can always donate after.
And why is Homeward Animal Shelter so important to you, Kayla?
Gosh, it's just a loaded question. When you start to see the needs of those that can't take care of themselves, so that to me is elderly children and animals, I think your heart just explodes. And so I've seen so many animals, dogs especially, that, mistreated or needing a home. And if you go into a shelter, I don't know if you ever have, Andy, and you see what you see or you follow their social medias, there's such a need for fosters and care and help, because so many animals, especially after COVID, are in need of a home. And the city limit is 6 in Fargo, and I'm at 4, and some of y'all are at 1. So I think we need to even the playing field a little bit. So if anyone's looking to adopt, Homeward Animal Shelters, they can help. They can help you out.
I was just looking at their website, and I don't know. I'm kind of more a cat person than a dog person, Kayla, although I do love dogs. But cats are just a little bit more, self-sustaining, I feel like. But I do like the kitty scarf on there.
Yes. Well, people don't know, but before this, my dogs were barking like crazy, so I had to kind of put them away. Cats aren't as loud, but I used to be a cat person, and now once you have a dog, have you had a dog, Andy?
Oh yeah. Yep. When we lived on the farm, we had a number of dogs over the years.
Okay. All named the same thing, or all named differently?
So it's funny you should ask. We had 3 different purebred collies, all named Lassie, and 1 German Shepherd named Spike, and Spike was a terror. No, I do miss having animals on the farm, but today, like, we've got a great daycare that our girls go to, and there's a dog or 2 there. And so it's great seeing the dogs there, and they get their animal fill there, and I would love it, but it's a little bit easier not having an animal too.
But your heart is missing something, Andy. We'll work on that. I can hook you up.
All right. Sounds good. Kayla, what's going on in your world outside of philanthropic things this week?
Well, Andrew, I'm so glad that you asked. Today and yesterday, I've been working in my Remarkable that I finally purchased because my good friend Andrew Yagi was quite the influence on me to purchase it. And I can say, you're always right. Anytime you tell me to do something or I should try something, you're right. And it is so great at keeping me organized. I absolutely love it. So I have to plug the Remarkable because I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's probably one of my best, and my favorite tools that I use. It really keeps me organized, and it's so great to, just as far as like working with clients, even, using it at the gym. So many different things. It's really a great resource.
Yeah, I love it. And I think as we evolve and we grow, and so many of us are, dabbling in different things and boards and charities. And, you think about the times that you take notes, and a lot of times you're not pulling out your laptop and you've got paper everywhere. And I think as a realtor, you're in homes, and it is so useful. And I didn't realize you can pull it up on your phone too. Like, it's super helpful. So if anyone's listening and they have big goals in 2024 to get organized, spend the money, try the Remarkable.
Absolutely.
100-day return, guarantee return policy. So
awesome.
What's new in your world? What's going on with you today? How's your week been?
Yeah, the week's been good. Every week, Kayla just seems to fly by. Real estate is getting busier. We listed 3 properties this week, so kind of helping people work towards their real estate goals, working with a variety of buyers. Done a decent amount of flying. Took a flying trip earlier this week, and actually helping kind of in a flight instructor capacity. A friend of mine, Andrew, we were up flying yesterday.
Mhm.
We actually were over Fargo, in fact. We
Interesting.
we were flying and finishing up his hours so he can go take his private pilot check ride. And one of the requirements, Kayla, you come out to an airport like where I'm at Fergus Falls or other rural areas, and these particular airports are non-towered. Versus you go up to Fargo and it's a towered airport, you got to talk to the controllers. And so one of the requirements to get your private pilot's license is to go and to do some solo work without an instructor in the plane at a towered airport. So I flew up with him because we had some other flight requirements to take care of, and he threw me out up at Fargo Jet Center, and then I let him do kind of 3 runs in the pattern and come and pick me up so we could fly back. But it was kind of fun and interesting as I was there watching. There was a United Express jet that was coming in, and so there's the little Piper, little
Oh,
Cherokee trainer, and he's waiting for one of the big birds. So
fun. That's awesome. Yeah, the amount of flying you do, Andy, like so cool to see. And when you're up, before the rest of the world and you're up in the air, it must be like give you like a sense of peace too. Like just to
yeah,
be like, not necessarily alone, but just kind of with your thoughts in the air. It's so cool to see.
yeah, a lot of time to think up in the air. Or even I
Yeah.
was telling him the other day, sometimes you run into flights where you got maybe more of a headwind or whatever, and a lot of times I'm just sitting up there, kind of kick back, taking my remarkable out, Kayla, making notes, journaling or scribing about something.
All the
So
things. I love it. It's so cool to see you do, Andy.
absolutely. Kayla, I was reading an article and just pulled this up. It talked about
Mhm.
how home prices are still on the rise in 85% of U.S. cities. And in short, good news for homeowners, bad news for buyers.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
You know, I think too, as we see, inflation occur and as we see people hold on to their properties, I think that, the high rates cause individuals to, not want to pull the trigger. Obviously, they're nervous. It's more money than they thought they'd have to spend. But I think also sellers get to the point where they're like, well, inventory is low. There's, probably more demand, especially as rates come down a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of an increase throughout the rest of the year, honestly. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think the same. I think, obviously the market is where it is. It's been really interesting, to kind of watch things. And obviously we've had a little bit of a respite in the rate department,
Yeah.
which has energized, people to jump into the market. But now, Kayla, it seems that, we've seen, rates kind of, they've kind of solidified a little bit more and they're back up a little bit. What are rates
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny. I swear, if you went online, everyone's saying rates are great. But I think people forget that just because they're great on one day doesn't mean they're going to stay, at that great spot. So 6.97, for those of you viewing this first listening, Mortgage News Daily shows a 30-year fixed. FHA is going to be around 6.25. So when we look back a year ago, we are not that far off. We really aren't. A quarter, 3/8. And so we start to see people kind of coming out like, oh, I hear rates are low. But it's funny. The psychology of people talking about the Fed rates dropped. It's funny what just people talking about does to applicants. And I've seen a lot more applicants, and the rates aren't even that different. They are slightly lower. We hope that they become lower, but in reality, they're pretty similar to where they were. How about you? Are you seeing, sellers maybe coming out now? Finally, they're wanting to list and they've got a 2-3% rate, or new buyers wanting to move forward if they're kind of like, hey, now's the time. I might as well do it. What are you seeing?
Yeah, we're having a lot of conversations and seeing a lot of people, but it seems like people are more on the fence. And you talk about,
Yeah.
seeing a ton of applications. And I would
Oh,
say, Kayla, you're maybe, the anomaly out there just, because you work really hard at marketing, at self-promotion, at attraction, and people are coming coming to you because they want the Kayla experience, so to speak.
It is.
What's that?
It is a thing. The
It is.
Kayla experience.
It,
The Kayla effect.
Absolutely. Well, but seriously, I mean, you do a great job, and you have a lot of people that come to you. You've been in banking for a long time, whereas I know there are some banks in the area here where they have many lenders on staff that had no mortgages close in January, and then Kayla, I came across this. I don't know if you follow Inman very much, but talking about how home buyer purchase loan demand falls again as mortgage rates firm, and just the fact that applications picked up for 3 weeks in January. Applications are contracting just because rates have kind of have firmed up and have increased a little bit.
Yeah, and I think what you said too, there's a lot of people on the fence. And one of the things that no one would know, even probably you, Andy, someone in mortgages, these applications expire, credit expires, income docs expire. And we think about before people get approved, they're ready to go. They shop, they find the home, they move in, good to go. I've had people on the fence for a couple of years now. In fact, I had a client message me recently. She was approved 2 years ago, and I've been reaching out through follow up. Hey, do you want to refresh your application? Are you still in the market? She finally reached back out and said, hey, can you, I don't want to reapply and I don't want to provide anything, but can you tell me what I'd be approved for based on 2 years ago? And so we lenders are doing a lot of work behind the scenes that people probably don't know, because we can't technically approve this person, but we can guide them. But yet then they want us to run numbers, but yet we don't know what rate or program they may qualify for because we don't have updates. So there's just a lot of work. I understand why she might not want to go through that process again, but I think just a lot of people just don't know what they want to do. They're on the fence. Mm-hmm.
Well, and not just people that are buying and people buying at any age, but we always talk about, especially the millennials are the largest group of home buyers these days. And so, I talk to many millennials who, hey, yeah, we don't know what we want to do. We're on the fence. But it would seem, Kayla, in just looking around out there, that there are, a lot of older people that don't know what they want to do either. I don't know if you got much of a chance to look at the article I sent you from Apple News or Business Insider the other day, but about baby boomers and just talking about how they're approaching peak burden on the economy. And more specifically, Kayla, the fact that boomers are taking up the housing supply, taking up a disproportionately large share of the housing supply compared to with previous generations. And so that's really, really interesting. And again, goes on to talk about we're headed for 5 or 6 years where baby boomers contribute to very strong housing demand. And we're going to have high house prices. As a result, boomers appear to be hogging the larger homes that millennials would otherwise be flocking to as they start families. Empty nester baby boomers own 20% of large homes in the U.S. What do you make of that?
Think about it. You are a baby boomer and your last child went to college. We see a lot of people at that age, they downsize, they get something smaller. But for them, Andy, to downsize means a higher payment, a higher rate. Well, of course they're hogging these larger homes. They'd rather deal with, hiring a house cleaner, cleaning the house themselves and having a larger home than to just go downsize to something small and potentially have a higher payment. So it's something we haven't really seen much of in the last few years. But now you have these families that are starting that are wanting these homes, but they're not selling because why take that leap? I mean, when you think of it that way, it makes sense, right? What do you make of all this? The baby boomers and the whole thought of, they're going to not be working in the labor force. Like, what do you think of all this as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting challenge, for the market in many, many different ways, from everything from Social Security, to healthcare and so on. Yeah. But I look around and I look at my parents, who do have our childhood home, to sell or do something with, and then so many, people that I know are friends and their parents who need to do something with their home. And looking at this as well, Kayla, kind of a subsequent article talking about younger buyers want baby boomers boomers to update their homes. So they're worried they'll inherit or purchase a property in need of major renovations and repairs, which could further hamper affordability. I was just talking yesterday to some buyers who are moving here, probably late summer, early fall. They're like,
Mhm.
wow, we love some of these properties on the market, but they need so much work.
Yeah,
And I
it's
know, like,
true.
even in our family, my parents, our childhood home, and it's a very nice house. It's been updated, but
Mhm.
I know that my parents would have really loved if one of my brothers, would have wanted to jump into that house, but it just wasn't appealing, for either of them. Just with,
Mhm.
again, you start looking at a house that's 30 or so years old, and you start looking at, heating and cooling and windows, and then even layout, and that's one of the biggest challenges. Some of these 90s to early 2000s homes, or even older, just the floor plan is not ideal based on today's standards.
Yeah, so and you have a baby boomer that say does downsize, that home becomes available. So you've got a first-time home buyer, a repeat buyer buying the home, and then they're taking on the whole thought of, okay, I like it has the space, but I hate this, and this needs to be updated. And so, I'd encourage people listening, go back and listen to our episode on new construction and consider that because,
Right.
if that's a concern, I mean, it's why would they fix it up if they're going to sell it and get top dollar anyway? So
Mhm.
yeah,
Absolutely.
interesting.
Well, Kayla, with affordability being an issue, we're always looking for ways, and I'm certainly looking for ways. How can I help a client, get into something a little bit more affordably? And so that's why, like we talk, it's always good to connect with a great lender to see, what do I qualify for? What down payment assistance programs are out there?
Mhm.
What can we work out in terms of concessions? Again, when you talk new construction, there may be some perks financially from some of the builders who are motivated to move some of their supply. But another thing that really hampers buyers in the closing costs area, Kayla, tends to be title insurance.
Yeah.
And so I was really excited when I saw this through Bigger Pockets that Fannie Mae is expanding an allowance for attorney opinion letters instead of title insurance. And Kayla, maybe talk a little bit about, what's a title opinion versus title insurance?
So a lot of times, and I'm not a title expert, so I cannot give legal or tax advice, but when you get a mortgage and you have a home, there's third party fees such as appraisal and title, right? There's these other parties that are involved. And so when you go and you purchase a home, you're going to put, everything in your name, title work, etc. And so it just really depends on the state and the county, but the title company will do many things. They'll do a plat drawing. They will, point out the boundary lines of your property. North Dakota has abstracts. I know Minnesota doesn't. They will take, quite literally, go back to the time that that land was developed and document every owner and every transfer. And in North Dakota, we have these big things called abstracts that document that. So you have
We
all
do have them here in Minnesota too, Kayla.
wait, do you?
We do, although they're getting less common.
So tell me, so one of the things that Minnesota has is they used to have like these little books. Are they small over there?
Like the abstract?
Yes. Are they like a small book?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So I have a Minnesota property. There was no abstract on ours, but I have done some where they were small. So thank you. But to go back to your question, a title opinion is basically a report of a title companies have attorneys, and they basically explain the ownership and the transfer of ownership on a certain piece of property. And an attorney does a full review where, the county where it's located, and an attorney will give their opinion on the property records, make sure that there are no legal disputes, make sure that the deed of the parcel is correct. So there's a lot of things an attorney does, typically with a title company. Did I explain it well enough?
Yeah, I think so. So basically, just the difference. A title opinion is an attorney giving a legal opinion as to
Mhm.
whether or not you have good title, versus a title insurance
Mhm.
policy is something you buy that basically covers you in the event there are title issues that are found down the road. And so the problem, of course, as we know, Kayla, with title insurance is that it generally is maybe going to add an average of $1,000, to your closing costs, versus a title opinion. And so this just talks about how Fannie is really working, to start allowing for a title opinion just to help save money.
Well, yeah, and there's two, different insurance policies. You got your lender's title insurance, and you have that's required, and then you've got your owner's title insurance that is optional. And so in general, it's just this is a way for clients to essentially save money.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm all for that.
Yep. No, I think it's really great too, Kayla. And so it'll be interesting to
Mhm.
see, more things like that coming down the pipe. Although, how often do you run into title issues? Are you seeing it more often or not really?
Not really ever. I mean, never. I mean, unless someone has a property they haven't disclosed, it's going to show up on title work. Or if they haven't paid the IRS federal, debt. If there's a lien, it'll show up. I've had that happen.
Sure.
But other than that, no issues that I've seen in my 7 years of being a mortgage lender.
I've
So
seen in three and a half of real estate, I've seen so many title issues. It's ridiculous. Although, being in the lakes area and, serving some
well,
of rural communities, we do run into a lot of interesting things. I had a lady who was buying a house here locally and was selling in a very, very small town, and a state highway runs through town. And on one side of the highway, everything was great. The other side of the highway, every lot was off by about 15 feet.
doesn't
And
surprise me out there.
yeah. Well, and now, that some of these things weren't picked up, but now that there are better records, GIS and everything, it just seems like a lot of things are getting caught more often.
And in lakes country, it's just when you got the shore and the you've got transfer of ownership in the family and trust. It's a whole different ball game. So that doesn't surprise
Mhm.
me.
Yep, absolutely.
Mhm. That's interesting.
So, Kayla, a topic I want to talk about today is, should education be required prior to buying or selling a home?
I
And
giggle about this.
and that might sound a little bit controversial, and I mean, I'm the non-rule follower in me, says that no, nothing should ever be required.
Right.
Don't tell me how to do, what I would like to do. And I mean, you just look at all of these, licenses and permits and different things that are required, and just, what seems to be government overreach. But also working in real estate day in and day out. I mean, you and I banter back and forth all the time about horror stories and just people being so ill prepared, and just the fact that a little bit of education would go
Mhm.
just so far.
It would. And I think being in it, we see it's not everybody, but so often it's almost disheartening, and we lenders and realtors, we can't expect people to know everything at all. I mean, we need to understand that these individuals, first and foremost, have no idea what they're doing most of the time. And the rare 5% of people that do, still the market changes, things change, and it's not the same when they purchased 2 years ago. So I think, we in the business need to understand that we need to educate, we need to empower our people, but also we have to remember as a buyer yourself that it's your biggest purchase. It's a big deal and it's emotional. And for you to get the best experience and have the best knowledge so that you can make a decision. You're not making the decision because Andrew Yegi said you should do this, or Kayla Callender said you should lock this rate. You're making the decision because you are educated. But when you're rushing through and you don't have time for a phone call and you're just looking for a rate, my message is to anyone that doing that, you're missing out on an opportunity to be educated, to get the best experience, the best product, the best, sales price for your home and everything. And far too often we're seeing the opposite, the rush through, and then it's a lot of things get missed. So
Yep.
education to me is huge. And I would say if people could just slow down a little bit or start earlier and take your time, it would save you so much money, so much energy. And yeah, it's going to take a little more time, but it's going to be worth it. How about you? What are your thoughts on education?
Well, first of all, you started off kind of your spiel talking about how you were disheartened, and it breaks my heart that you're disheartened on Giving Hearts Day because of the
Mm.
lack of education.
Ha ha ha, Andrew. Wow. So,
Um,
so well played.
yeah, Kayla. I mean, obviously, I'm all for education. I'll tell you the tale of two buyers here, and just over the weekend on Friday night, I had someone text me, "Hey, we really want to see this house. Are you able to meet us out there at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning?" And I saw it really late, and I kind of make it a policy, unless we're in the heat of the battle, not to really respond after 7 p.m. because, hey, family and
Yeah.
quiet time's important, and nothing's that urgent. And so I responded to them the next day, and reached out, and we visited a little bit, and we're not pre-approved, renting in a lease, but boy, we just really want to see it. And again, kind of the same old, not to beat a dead horse, so to speak, but just not anywhere near prepared or even educated as to where they should be starting. Now, I had another buyer reach out to me who I know personally, and him and his significant other are, hey, we're tired of renting. We want to start gaining some equity. Can you talk with us? Who do you recommend for a lender? Hey, let's connect with that lender. Let's get things figured out. And then let's sit down and let's plan a little bit. And just really taking a much more pragmatic approach to things, and really wanting to be educated, which, Kayla, is always so refreshing. Um,
Mhm.
and I even had a group of sellers in my office last week as well, that kind of the same thing.
Mhm.
Once I was able to pin them down, because everyone's got a busy schedule, they were all about the education piece,
Mhm.
just as far as what they should be doing to well position themselves. Because sometimes, Kayla, even selling a house, it's like, hey, I know you don't want to spend money on this, but this might be the case of, spending $5,000 to make 25,000.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
Really educating them on timeline, on marketing, on a path forward, just to make things as stress free as possible. So yes, Kayla, I absolutely believe in education,
Mhm.
very, very much. And I'm kind of excited too about education, and maybe some things that we might be able to work on.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I think that's where you and I have thought, how do we get the message out? Because not every single person in Minnesota or North Dakota follows Kayla's social media or Andy's YouTube, And so how do we get in front of people? Because a lot of times the thought comes up in their heads, and next thing we know, they're with a realtor and they're not knowing what lender, and they're just wanting to buy a house. So one of the things I think that you and I have decided is, how do we get education out to people quicker? How do we create maybe a community around being empowered with this education so that you can make home buying enjoyable and understand it? So, I think, to anyone listening, I would say keep an eye out for some exciting things that Andrew and I might have in store.
I
Fair,
agree.
fair enough.
And not just for consumers, Kayla, but probably for other agents and lenders. And you talk about social media, and people obviously attracting. And I love the story that you told me the other day about the agent who reached out and kind of left you a voicemail, or when you connected with them, said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I hope I wasn't interrupting you recording a TikTok or something." And the particular buyers he was working with, even though he maybe couldn't totally remember their names, you had recognized them, and that they had followed you on social media. So kind of
Weird.
taking a stab at you a little bit, but isn't it kind of funny how that works?
It is. And I think, social media is not going away. This is a way that the next generation and even the current generation is going to search somebody. So if you're given lenders' names or realtors' names, you're going to the platforms and you're wanting to find out about them. The biggest purchase or the biggest sale you will ever have. You want to know who you're working with. And it is so important that you're doing your research. And so when we talk about social media used to be just about entertainment and selfies. It is now a way to break geographical boundaries and essentially come into your client's home on their phone and tell them, educate them, empower them, add value, and basically get in front of them before you meet them. So for those listening, sorry, that's my whole rant on social media, but it is a powerful and necessary tool to be in any business, in my opinion.
Mhm. Absolutely. I agree. Kayla, honestly, I dislike social media. If I could get rid of it all, I probably would. But
Same.
it's it's such a great way to connect with people. And we see everybody out there. I mean, you are attracting people like crazy because they love your content. They see you're educated. They can interview you
Mhm.
without having to interview you. And then they're like, hey, I already feel like I know Kayla. I like her. And of course, there are some out there that say, nope, she's not my cup of tea. And kind of the same with me. I'm having more and more people come my way, because of video and the like. I
Yeah.
did just kind of a passing note about the love hate with technology, come across the fact that, Gen Z, some more of Gen Z is going retro, and why they're ditching smartphones for dumb
For
phones.
dumb phones. Interesting. Did it say why? Like,
It just talked about, I don't even remember. I'd read the article, but just kind of wanting something maybe a little bit more retro, a little bit more simple, just
yeah.
detoxing from technology. Just because, again, I think especially today, so many people are on a computer or tied to a workstation or working remote and in and out of meetings
Mhm.
all day long.
Mhm.
It's like, man,
Constantly. And
yeah,
you've got your Apple Watch, you've got your phone, you've got your email, and we're constant. And what happens is people expect a constant response, and it almost creates anxiety.
it
You know what I
does.
mean? And social media is fabulous, wonderful, a great tool, but it can also be the demise of some people. So it doesn't surprise me that article one bit.
Right. Well, Kayla, education, should it be required? Yes, it should. I think it should.
I think in some form it should at least have the ability to hop on a webinar or have a call with a lender. Don't go in just blind. At least have conversations, or I mean, you're just setting yourself up for success the more that you take in that knowledge or listen to a darn podcast like this one and get some knowledge there.
Amen. I love it.
Amen.
Well, I'm looking forward to collaborating more with you in the future on some education offerings. And as Kayla said, stay tuned. I think there will be some exciting things coming down the pipe. And Kayla, have a great rest of the week. And I really hope that Homeward Animal Shelter does well on Giving Hearts Day.
They will. Well, we'll see what the tally comes to be. We'll report it when we record next time.
Sounds good. Have a great
All
day,
right.
Kayla.
I will if you will.
See ya.
Bye.